What's up?
What's up? Play any new games lately?
Nah, man, nothing good out right now.
Yeah, man, I feel you.
Hey, I got an idea. Hello and welcome to Press Start the Pitch, the podcast where game ideas get powered up, broken down, and judged one pitch at a time. This is episode 3 of our podcast series. I'm Joe.
And I'm Chad.
Each week, one of us will pitch a brand new game concept. Then we'll break it down, starting with the gameplay, the challenges, and whether people would actually buy it. And finally, we should decide if we should sell it or shelve it. So with that out of the way, let's get to our pitch today. Take it away, Chad.
All right. So, starting this one out different, not a simulator this week. Imagine this. If Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption wasn't riding a quarter horse through the dying Old West, but instead was straddling a custom Harley Davidson motorcycle, leading a convoy down Route 66 with his brothers at his back. If instead of campfires under the stars, it was a neon-lit gas station, cheap motels, and the roar of engines echoing through the desert night. If loyalty still meant everything, but instead of cowboy boots, spurs, and saddles, it came with tattoos, worn leather cuts, and the weight of a patch on your back. It's Red Dead Redemption, but a new age, trading the open range for the open road and the wild frontier for the outlaw brotherhood. So, what do you think of that, Joe?
Oh, man. I like that idea. I think that would be awesome, honestly. Just with the way that, how detailed the Red Dead storyline is. And I mean, like, I could just see that being awesome. I mean, if you have a good storytelling in the storyline where you're like interested the whole time and it's, something's always changing, something's always happening, especially with biker gang stuff, like that could get insane.
Yeah.
It's like a mix of Red Dead and like that kind of criminal aspect, maybe of like GTA or something in there would be kind of interesting to see.
Yeah. So, with the last two podcasts we did, we kind of, the initial elevator pitch was much longer, but, we kind of dove into the mechanics. I mean, this one, I think I should kind of explain the background from this a little bit more. Like, the original idea, obviously, I've played Red Dead, you've played Red Dead. Probably mostly everyone has played Red Dead. I mean, South Park even made jokes about it for a season about people playing Red Dead and talking about it as if they're life, because what Rockstar has done with story-based games in the past is absolutely phenomenal when they actually buckle down to it. And I think you can agree with me there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that their storytelling ability, I remember the first time that I played the original Red Dead Redemption and I finished it and I was like, I felt like I just played a movie.
Exactly.
Like it was that good. It had the depth of the characters and like the whole story was awesome. And then for them to come back and make a sequel and then have another amazing storyline it's incredible. So they have a great storytelling side when they do those games.
I agree 100%. And, the idea kind of spurred, playing Red Dead. I've replayed it a couple times throughout the years because it's been out for a while now. And what I kind of experienced, is, the MC Club, through, our experience with like 5M RP servers and stuff, we saw a lot of people interested with biking and MCs, and we've done some stuff with that in the past. But what I kind of noticed was like when I was thinking about it, I kind of had that moment, because when you look at like the outlaw cowboy thing that's going on in Red Dead, the whole family unit of the building the camp and everything like that, in my mind, it kind of paralleled with like a clubhouse feel. Like instead of a outlaw campsite, you have, your blossoming MC club, because I mean, that kind of leads into my first concept, because I think the gameplay concept for this episode will be a lot different. We'll talk some mechanics and stuff like that, but I think it's kind of the concept of the narrative of the game. How does the game start? What is the goal of the game for the player? What's the goal? Because I mean, you're not just diving into an open world like GTA Online or something like that, where you're just start doing freeform missions. I mean, I think that would be a big part of the game. But I mean, where does the game start at its core? Because I mean, do you go in and you do a created character like everything else, or do we have a preset character, which is kind of my inclination for this. Is I think in the story concept is you start as a played character, like a chosen character for you, and you could have the whole gender selection or something to toggle between it if you want something to that customization. And of course you could have like clothing and appearance stuff like your hair and stuff, but I think you would have an established character that you would start the game with. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to follow a storyline, I think it makes sense to have the established character because then it's, then you can easily write in that character throughout the whole thing instead of just like some games where they do that created character for a storyline. I know this is a weird connection to this, but like WoW, for an example,
Yeah,
it's a weird connection, but like obviously you play a character that you created in a specific class. And then the
right.
way that they write in that character to the whole storyline is that you're just like a champion of Azeroth. And it's like weird because it's like you're not a main character in sense of like how the story is. You're just kind of there, but you're expected to do everything. And you're they have stronger powers than you, but you're expected to do all these crazy tasks and they don't help you with it most of the time. It's just it's off, but I understand why they do it. But for something like this, if you came in and you just had the storyline and you could either pick male or female, but they both had like an already set name and all that in it, I think would be really good for the story.
Yeah, and it also allows you to bring up that quality of the voice acting and the locomotion and the character animations. If it's all mocap and uh pre-recorded things. I mean, just using as an example, the go-to most of these people have in games like this is Norman Reedus. So like you could potentially, if this is a AAA studio making something like this, which I can already tell you at the start of the pitch, it would definitely have to be a AAA studio that would make this. The quality that I would want to see in this game would have to be that Rockstar Take-Two level detail that could take 7 or 8 years with a team of 300 people developing the mocap, the recording. You want that fidelity in the game. And the reason I bring up Red Dead as a comparison is, yeah, there's similarities between the whole biker versus, outlaw cowboy thing, but it's the way that world feels in Red Dead. Like I picked it up recently and started playing it again, and it was the world feels so alive, just the free form. And I mean, you have the linear kind of storylines that you can follow, but when you're riding around, just the way you have wagons and people just out and about riding around and doing things that you're not even directly interacting with. It's just things are going on. And like, for example, the intro, when you go from the tutorial area of Red Dead into the main first area, the overlook, horseshoe overlook. And that transition that it does where you're riding on the wagon with the other two characters and you're just listening to the dialogue as you're just looking at the landscape and you're like, wow, it looks amazing as it's transitioning to, a summertime environment versus a winter frozen wasteland that you were in before. And I think that's an important thing, which kind of gets me into, where the game starts. And I've kind of fleshed out this idea in my head a lot more than some of our other ideas we've bounced around. Is I think this game should showcase the start of the motorcycle club era.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
So I'm thinking like post-war, and I mean, you could do either, the post-World War II early days of, the guys coming home, the GIs coming home, or you could even do like post-Vietnam era. And it's these guys coming home, this group of guys that are, not quite acclimated back to normal society after war. And, they're huddling because, the traumatic experience they did, it creates that bond. Then you add that motorcycle element. And I'm not saying we imitate like the Hells Angels or whoever, whatever, Mayans, or I think it should be a fictional gang. You could even have like fictional world with the similarities to the real world US, but, a made up war similar to Vietnam that when you look at it, you go, okay, I know which war they're talking about.
Right.
And it creates this thing. And I think the game should start out, and this would be kind of your tutorial segment, similar to like the blizzarding area of Red Dead, which was a big prologue that they did that taught you how to play the game. And it establishes the characters, creates the thing, kind of starts the game out on a low note so you can start building up and create that build up vibe, which I think is very important to the game. Is I don't want you to start in a well-established MC club that has all the provisions and all these bells and whistles. I want you to feel like you're really working for it with your character because, the goal of the game is to attach yourself to this character. And I think you start, you're coming off the plane or the bus or whatever, and, or maybe, kind of have a little bit of movement control tutorial with little flashovers where it's like little parts of like maybe you're in basic training to do your movements and the story moves forward then. And then, your combat training could be like a flashback to the war and it shows you how to fire the weapons and fight and stuff like that. And then, eventually when it's ready to put you into the game, like maybe you and your buddies are hunkered down in a trench or a foxhole or something and talking about like, man, when we get home, we're sticking together no matter what, or something along that line. And then transition, the time moves forward to you arriving home, or maybe you waking up on the couch or something after passing out drunk or something. And the phone rings and it's one of your buddies. Hey, so-and-so died. Did you hear that? Cause we're talking like 60s, maybe 50s if we're doing World War II, late 60s, early 70s if we're doing like Vietnam era. So that era of motorcycles and the world outside and everything like that. And, that kind of introduces the person. You go meet up with your first guy and we go, hey, we're not going to lose any more of our buddies, and maybe he's on a motorcycle and he convinces you to get a motorcycle or something like that. You start, building this club. I mean, what do you think about something like that as like the starting point of the game?
I think that could like put a very unique aspect to the game because like, I feel like with everything now, we just get like modern day stuff or when stuff's already well established. And I think another thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not huge on my history of motorcycle clubs, but
Yeah.
when the first motorcycle gangs or clubs were started, they weren't actually like gangs, right? They were actually, when they came back from the war, they just wanted to ride together with their buddies. I don't think that the gang stuff where they started doing the criminal activity was like immediately, right? Like, I don't think that happened. So, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know.
Well, from what I've read is there was kind of a twofold introduction. Again, I'm not an MC Club expert at all. I know what I've read over the years, watching documentaries and stuff like that. But, it was kind of a World War II thing for veterans to stick together, that they were still wanting to hang with their buddies and a way to kind of feel free, to act out. Because a lot of them had, the scout motorcycles in the war, especially in World War II.
Right. Yeah.
And so they would come home and they were familiar with riding a bike all the time and they enjoyed, the wind in their hair and all that, the freedom of riding. And, it was kind of I'd say late 40s, early 50s, there was an image of the outlaw biker created, these criminal aspects of the rebel rousers and stuff like that. And it kind of evolved from there into what we know as, the quote, 1%ers and stuff like that. And I think the game could kind of evolve like that too. Is I think it could hold your hand as you go, but not be like where it feels like a tutorial. Like the game's telling you the story, but you're playing your tutorial and and you kind of go, okay, this is teaching me the game, but it's not like press left, right, up, down to move around, press E to interact. And, it could be worded in, with the vocal recordings, hey man, come over here and grab that. And, you walk over there and it's like press E to interact.
Yeah.
And then, you learn how to interact with something, or, hey man, if you bump into someone and their helmet knocks off, hey man, can you pick that up? And it's like, press F to pick up or something like that. And it gives you that one, tool tip where you're like, okay, now I understand what I need to do.
Right.
And I think that's very creative because I feel like the importance of this game keeping you into the narrative is really where it comes down to is, so say, you come out of this war, whichever it is, World War II or Vietnam era, because you could do both. I mean, the original MC clubs came out of World War II. So you could go as far back like that. But we could adapt it and give like a Vietnam War era that it's a group that's like, hey man, did you hear about these like MC clubs or whatever like that are forming? It's all these veterans that get together and ride around and they act up and drink and hang out, but they stay together no matter what, man. And then, you start building your own club because I don't think you should be forming like the first MC club in this world.
No.
I think they're established and like you and your buddies are like, hey man, we should do that. Maybe some, like I said, you need that low note to start it where like everyone just feels like downtrodden and beaten down. And you're like, political stuff in the game, not real world political because, fictional world, but things that are inspired by things that happened in that era. and your guys are like, oh man, we need to do something about this. We should resist or whatever and just do our own thing. And so you get into this thing. And I mean, we're only talking about the tutorial right now, essentially the prologue.
Yeah. Well,
And
I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say too, like I think, we're on the interesting topic of like the World War II era biker gangs starting, and then you're saying like maybe a time period a little bit more current than that, like Vietnam era. It would be interesting to like kind of wrap the beginning of the game and like the story of the game starting with like, because eventually I think we're headed in the direction of the game being like you're gonna get into the criminal stuff, right?
Yeah, over time, I
So
think.
I think over time, that might be a good way to start the game is like maybe you're younger guys just getting out of the military. You're seeing what these older guys are doing as a motorcycle game. And the game kind of starts in that era of like the motorcycle gangs being like these World War II guys that just want to hang out and ride. But then you, as a younger guy, you start your gang, but you get mixed up in some weird stuff. And that's how you start doing the illegal stuff. So the game is kind of showcasing like the gangs or the clubs turning from motorcycle clubs into gangs and the one percenters. And, as
Yeah.
we know them today would be kind of interesting to
And I
see.
mean, you could go as far as to say, the prologue to the game is a different character than the actual main game. So
Yeah.
say the prologue, you start out as grandpa, and this,
Yeah.
I'm just using it as a rough example, but you could even say dad. And, it's showing dad coming home with, his buddies and starting that concept of the MC, and it teaches you how to play with the World War II concept. And maybe, the game's evolving over time. You'll have these lapses where it doesn't feel like it's a huge jump cut forward, but the transitions of time.
Yeah.
And as you play the game, the transitions will get less and less because you'll be more focused on the actual timeline meant for the game, the era. And I think maybe you start out the game as like the father figure or the dad, and he comes home from the war and he's messed up from shell shock and PTSD. And he starts this thing with this thing, and it's meant as a social club thing, post World War II. So, that 40s, early 50s era. And him and his buddies start riding together, and you kind of see the game, the son that he has with, his wife or girlfriend or whatever, and the kids watching him. Like, cut scenes could have like him outside wrenching the bike and the kids sitting on the seat and asking dad questions about it. And maybe the dad figure starting to see like some of the criminal aspects. Some of the guys in clubs are doing things they're not necessarily in their original vision of what an MC was.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of trying to tell his son, don't be like them.
Yeah, that I was just about to say that. I think that would be like a super awesome way to start it is like you're the dad maybe when he's younger, but you see the kid, and then you obviously the kid's the character you're going to play.
Yeah.
But then that dad is always there throughout the storyline, like trying to get you away from being corrupted by the, the illegal stuff that's going on. And,
Yeah.
but you're constantly fighting that, you get hooked up in the wrong gang or whatever. And then that's all your decision making stuff is like if you're going to go the corrupt route or try to not go as
Yeah.
corrupt, and that would be really cool to see.
I think. And then, you have an event that happens towards the end of the prologue that allows the shift. Maybe the dad gets arrested or someone dies, and it shows him, at a funeral or something like this, saying this can't happen anymore, and telling his son, I don't ever want you to be doing this or something like that. And then it does, the transition cut, which, would always be figured out when you're actually writing the script. But then it transition, it shows maybe the son as a young adult or a late teen, maybe, and he's starting to follow in his footsteps. And, the constant back and forth with dad, who's aged now. And he's like, I'm going to do what I want, dad. And dad's like, I'm telling you, stay out of this.
Right.
It's not what you think it is. And the dad's like, reluctantly, like, he goes and gets his own bike despite dad saying, don't do it. And I want you to get a job or go to college or whatever. And he's just, he's rebelling. And, maybe he starts getting hooked with, his best friend's more of the greaser type who's, doing the stuff, petty theft and stuff like that. And that kind of teaches you the criminal aspect of the game that you start doing. So it starts teaching you the criminal mechanics in the game, petty theft or extortion or whatever it might be in the game. And the game's teaching you as you're watching the story, because at this point you should be pretty vested in it.
Yeah.
Because, obviously if you listen to our podcast and someday this game's made and you're like, hey, I know what happens. But I think when you're playing as a dad, you're not predicting that you're going to become the son. And
I agree.
it
Yeah.
kind of transitions you into it. Maybe the dad can't ride anymore. Maybe he gets in a wreck and they don't know if he's going to make it or something. He ends up surviving. Maybe you do the jump cut of making it seem like the dad died in an accident. Cop arriving at the house, tapping on the door. Hey, your husband's been in a bad motorcycle accident. And it kind of implies that he dies. And then, you transition to the son being rebellious. And then one of the later scenes, shows him coming home and dad's okay, but he's like, it's hard for him to move anymore or something like that. And then you're like, oh, okay, the dad didn't die after all.
Yeah.
And
I mean, or you could even go as far to like, there's the protagonist and the antagonist deal in these stories, right? And obviously you're going to be playing as the kid, but what if you had it set up where, dad's still riding with his motorcycle club, but one day when the kid is still young and you're still doing the dad, you're playing the whole
yeah,
dad side of it. Maybe there's a gang that they know is like a bad gang and they
yeah,
do something to this good gang that the dad's in and it just lights a fire under the kid. But
yeah,
he's like, I need to take that gang out. And that's how you start your story. And then you get involved in all that. Would be
yeah.
kind of cool too.
And I think, you get into this transition. So we're transitioning now. He's a young adult. You're getting into the main story of the game. And I think he's not necessarily in an MC at this point. I think he's just doing the outlaw biker thing. Maybe he has a couple friends with him, but he's still idolizing this either negative gang or what his dad's gang's perception was from the past. And he's, chasing ghosts essentially. Like maybe he's trying to, patch in with this bad gang against his dad's wishes.
Yeah.
He wants to be the cool guy with these guys or something, or however it works, or maybe patch with what his dad's gang is now that his dad's not involved with them. Maybe his dad's gang's completely transitioned to become full 1% or criminal, and he still wants to be in his dad's MC.
Right.
And his dad's like, you need to stay away from him. He's like, no, they're going to cut me in. They're my brothers now, and things like that. And then you lead into, and this would be a good transition again, because I believe we should have a couple push forwards in it to get to the point of the era that we want the game to take place in. So I'm thinking maybe this is him trying to cut in. So it starts teaching you, like I said, the criminal aspect, the mechanics about the MC club, things you do in the clubhouse, how you interact with the clubhouse or people in the club, the concept of maybe freeform or side quests or maybe basic club management, things like that. And it's still teaching you the ins and outs of the game. And things are still, gated at this point. And maybe something happens and the gang turns on you, beats you up or something, or one of the guys that you thought was your buddy helping you get in, he turns on you and messes you up, and the gang basically exiles you or, beats you up and threatens to kill you if they catch you in town again or something along those lines. And so then we transition to the next stage of the game, which is a bit later. Say he's, 18, 19 when this all goes down. And now we transition, maybe he's like 21 or 22. And we're getting into the more of the 70s, 80s era, which I think is kind of the core focus of the game is that 80s era. So you're getting into like the kind of the Harleys you think now when you think of MC clubs, the gliders and stuff like that, the look that we want. Because, I mean, if you're talking post World War II, you're talking basically scout bikes. Late 60s, early 70s, we're talking the crazy rake, easy rider look and stuff like that. But then you get into like the 80s, you're talking the cruisers and the gliders and stuff like that a lot of people know now. And I think that's your transition point to get you to your thing. So maybe the kid goes to this new town, runs into somebody he knows or knew somebody in this town, leaves his main town. And so he's like, forget this, I'm going to start my own club. And so you have to start the recruitment process. You find people like-minded, maybe go to a bike shop in town, maybe your bike breaks down or something, you run into a mechanic or something like that who's a big bike rider too, and you're like, hey man, we should start a crew and ride or something like that. And so you get that initiation. Then you got to find your clubhouse and you got to start finding your basic people and you got to build your leadership for your club. And I think the choice aspect, I mean, this is getting in the mechanics now, because I kind of figure we've kind of got a brief summary of the story at this point, and it could be tweaked. And we could sit here and talk for hours about tweaking the script.
You could go any which way with it.
So we say you transition. So you got your prologue, which is dad, which is with the young boy. The boy turns into a teenager. That kind of puts you into the criminal side of the game to teach you the prologue. So you're learning the criminal side, whether it be him trying to patch in with his dad's crew or the outlaw crew that caused trouble for his dad or whatever. And so you get through that. That teaches you the criminal aspect of the game. Then it puts you into the actual game at this point, which is you're in a new town. You're starting your own crew. You got to build up everything. You're basically starting from scratch, which I think is important because you get that build up, the knockdown where you get that determination, like, okay, let's go now. Let's do it our way. And I believe in getting into the mechanics here is it's very important to have that good versus evil mechanic in the game. Like I think they call it honor in Red Dead. They have it in several games. Is your actions kind of help dictate the story's leaning. How you treat someone in a free-form quest or an interaction or something can come back to bite you later. It could come back to help you later. You know, you might be riding between the scenes. And again, these scenes, I want these beautiful landscapes and stuff when you're out cruising your bike. You know, the game can kind of help you with the bikes too, maybe on these scenes where you're not, you know, if we're assuming you're playing on a controller because it's bikes, so wheel support, not really worried about.
Yeah,
but
that wouldn't make sense.
maybe when you're on these cruises or something, you know, the game kind of has like a steering assist that's very light, but just keeps your actions from being jerky. And so you can kind of focus on the scenery. So you can kind of freeform look around and look at the world and stuff like that as you're riding. But I'm imagining like you riding between these towns and, you know, you basically chase out of the first town for whatever reason, because I feel like you need to start in a small town and start your crew and build up from there in this world. And so you get there, but along the way, you see someone broke down on the side of the road. And it's just, you know, you're like, oh, that's cool. There's, you know, an active thing. But if you think about it, you can go, hey, I'm going to stop and see if I can interact with this person. You stop and interact, and maybe it's a guy and his wife with her newborn, and they wreck their tires or they're out of gas or something. And you give them a little bit out of your tank just to get them into the next town. And then you later find out maybe he owns the hardware store or something like that. But say, you know, you help him out and he comes back later and he's like an ally later on because, you know, hey, I remember you helped me and my wife out when we were out there in that bad time. And I remember here, I'll give you a discount on X, or I'll give you this because I found it out back when I bought the place or something like that. Or maybe he looks the other way with the cops or whatever it might be. And I think that's an important part of the game is these, because Red Dead does that a lot. You'll run into random strangers and you don't know what it could be. I mean, let me know what you think on that.
Yeah, I mean, I like those systems in the other games too. I think that they all are cool. Like, you know, like especially in Red Dead, they like make you out to be in this dangerous outlaw gang, but like you as the player have the ability to kind of be that, yeah, we're in a gang, but I can still have a heart and help these other people out, and then have it benefit you down the line, I think is awesome. Because it's like, well, I'm not really worried about these just normal people, my beefs with another gang or whatever. So I'm still going to be a good person, but, you know, and have that affect you down the line. Like you said, like, you know, you help somebody out and that gives you good honor, good standing with the community. And maybe that's how you balance it the whole time is like, the more good you do, you have a better standing with the community, which can allow you to get stuff done. The community will have your back during certain things, maybe later on down the storyline or something like that, or you don't get harassed by the police as much or whatever. Like, I think that could be cool to have in there. And it gives that player the choice, whether they want to kind of be just this nasty biker that doesn't care about anybody, or they want to be kind of this hardcore biker that sticks up for his gang, but he's also there to help his community and help the community thrive as well at the same time, you know?
Yeah, because I'm thinking it needs to be a small town, and I'm going to bring this up, even though this is a horrible reference for the vibe of the game I want, is like Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
Is like how they have Charming in the show. It's this small town, and, you know, the biking, the club at this point is, you know, a necessary evil. They're like, we leave them alone, they leave the town alone. They don't work in the town. And so we let things go, and they don't bother us, we don't bother them type deal. But, you know, back to the hitchhiker or the broke down vehicle, you know, when you stop, you have the option to help him, or you could, you know, help him out, put the gas in the bike, and he'd be like, hey man, thanks for the help. And you hold out your hand. You have the choice to hold out your hand. And like, nah, you got to pay me for that, bud. It's not cheap either. You can give me all the money in your wallet for helping you out there. What? Yeah. I don't have much. I only got like $10. And then that $10 is mine. Give me your watch too. And then that comes back and bites you later because he may not go to the police over it, but you might run into him in a later mission. It's like, I remember you. I'm not helping you.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's like, well, crap. That would have made things a lot easier if he would have been friendly.
Yeah.
And, that's the thing is you take the gambles. It's like, do I want the early payoff or do I want a potential late payoff? And, it could be as simple as I think it would be important too, is have the whole concept of like NPCs can die. I mean, outside of your club, it might be a little bit different. Your club guys, maybe they don't die like NPCs could, but like if you shoot that guy in the head and rob him, loot him, I mean, he's not going to show up later, but you might see the impact of his wife later on. Of
Yeah.
like, she points you out, like you hide in the back of a restaurant. She's the cook in the restaurant because her husband died, so she had to get a job and everything like that. And you basically ruined her life. And she sees you in the back, starts screaming, "He's back here! He's back here! He's back here!" And then whatever's happening with the story, progresses that way. And I think just that gamble of the free form choice, and I don't think it should be like Fallout or something where you necessarily have like three choices. I think it could be a lean, like maybe it's like you point at them or target them or something, and it's like help them, antagonize them, threaten them, or something like that. And then it's the pre-programmed action,
Yeah.
and that would keep it a little bit simpler, and you wouldn't have to deal with the trying to spell out choices or something. Or you could have like maybe certain things with bribes or extort or whatever it might be. And yeah, I think the free form questing of the game would be very important along with the main line. So, getting back into it though, like the riding between towns. So we'll discuss another mechanic here is, so the riding in the game, how do you think it should be?
I like as far as the, like mechanics of it,
Yeah,
or
like riding actions. I mean, actions I kind of assume would be kind of GTA type mechanics in third person.
yeah,
I think the game would definitely be a third person game.
I agree. I think that would make the most sense out
Is
of
that
it.
what do they call it? Puppeteer marionette type controls where you kind of are walking your character from above, it feels like, but
Yeah,
you're in that over the shoulder behind third person aspect. I think they call it like
yeah.
puppeteer controls or something like that.
I mean, I think the writing should be more realistic than arcadey.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, like you can fall off your bike. I mean, any other game that has riding physics, whether it's a horse or a bike or whatever, you have the chance of falling off of it or crashing if you can't just ride
Mhm.
up a steep hill or drop off a cliff or something without
Yeah.
falling. I think that it should have that. But I think that to keep it nice and smooth, like you said early on, that it should have some sort of assist with it. Um, to where it makes your turning and all that seem nice and not super jerky.
Yeah.
I think that would make it really smooth.
And I mean, you could make it as simple as maybe, we're going to assume, let's just say now, not figure for the end, you're meant to play this game with a controller. It's not going to
Yeah,
feel right riding a motorcycle with a keyboard. I mean, you could say the footwork and everything would be fine on a keyboard, but I feel like riding on a keyboard would be kind of weird because it'd be very left, right, left, right, left, right. Whereas an analog, you can kind of be a little more smooth. Is maybe with the analog when you're riding, it's kind of accelerometer based. I'm not saying controllers necessarily have it, but the analog detects like if you just jerk the thing all the way to the right, the bike's going to respond as if you yank the bike to the right. Whereas if you're kind of smooth with your controls, it's going to be more gentle. And
yeah,
so, if you jerk it to the left and jerk it to the right, there's a good chance your bike might lay down if you're on the wrong surface. It's not just going to move left and right real quick. So, like if you're transitioning the gravel and you just yank the wheel to the right, you might slide the bike and you could potentially lay it down, which I think is already like, I mean, you kind of got that with Red Dead too. Is like if your horse, like if you don't do something, the horse can buck you off in the right circumstances.
yeah, exactly.
And I think it definitely the bikes would have to feel good. Like
Yeah,
they
for
have to
sure.
feel smooth. They have to, the sound again, as we said, this is the third
Yeah,
episode, sound engineering, so important for the game, the way the bike sounds and things like that, and so with that, and so you ride into this town, you get into this town, we're kind of going back on the storyline. So you get into the town, you arrive, and you have to find a place to stay because obviously you don't have anything but what's on your back and your bike. Maybe your bike's in bad shape. Maybe the guys beat the crap out of your bike before you managed to get away. Because I'm thinking you got away from whatever this is. Like you've escaped. And so you're, the man on the run, you've been chased out of town, exiled, you got to build your new kingdom of sorts in another area. And you get into this town, excuse me, you get into the town, you either find a hotel, which I think you could do, and go rent a room, maybe interact with the lady at the hotel. Maybe it's a rundown, flea hotel or whatever they call them. And, you can talk to the lady behind the counter and it establishes a side character for the story, or the guy behind the counter. Maybe he's a bike aficionado that's never ridden in a club or ridden a bike even, but he's always loved choppers, and he sees you pull up on your bike and, oh man, I love your Harley, blah, 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 blah. That's so cool, man. And you're like, hey man, I just need a room. It's like, for you, man, I'll hook you up and, $20 for the night or whatever, it's 60s or 70s. So it wouldn't be stupid expensive. And that kind of establishes your home base, your safe space, your hideout, whatever, to start out. You're working out of a hotel. Now, what do you think of, would you want freeform? So if you didn't want to stay in the hotel, maybe you just go camp in an alley. Would you want it to be like that? Or do you think like kind of putting someone in a residence or a house to start with to act as their base to start out? Do you think that would be more important, or do you think it should be more open? Like you could go, maybe it gives you an option. Go, maybe I should check out a hotel, or maybe I should go get something to eat. And maybe you talk to someone in the diner and you ask them if you can crash at their place or something.
Yeah.
Or,
I mean, I think that you should have some player decision in it, like where what they do directly kind of impacts the way, like the story is going to progress in a certain way, right? Like, there's a point A to point B in the story, but I think there should be some variance in between, right? So like if you start off at the hotel, like then you get the connection of the hotel, and like maybe somebody in the hotel is like going to benefit your gang down the line, but maybe you can get them earlier. Like I like the idea of like when you run into characters that are part of the story, like if you ran into a mechanic at the bike shop, because obviously like, okay, bike screwed up, I should probably go to a mechanic.
right.
You go there and then you meet this guy, and maybe you have to do a certain number of quests for him or follow or the storyline or whatever. But then eventually you can kind of recruit that guy into your gang. And then as you progress and like get bigger gang areas and actually get to a clubhouse eventually, then that guy's going to be a mechanic for your gang. So now you don't have to go to the shop for everything again. So he works for you. But I think you could have like maybe 3 different routes for the character to go down. Like he can go to the hotel, maybe it's just like find a place to sleep.
Yep.
And then you go to the hotel, that could be an option. Or you go to a back alley somewhere and crash out, that's an option. Or you run into somebody at the bar. But like 3 of those different pathways maybe would get you somebody different into your club eventually down the line that could do something different,
Yeah. I mean, you could go as far as, since we're talking a very narrative heavy game, is so like you were saying with the mechanic. So say you go into a town and it's like, it gives you 3 options in the HUD, get your bike fixed, get something to eat, find a place to sleep, whatever it might be. And so it gives you those 3 optional choices where you can choose whichever one to do first. It's not going to force it. That way you can put your blips on the map if you need to or whatever. And so say you go to the mechanic, you go in, as you walk in, like you see 3 bikers from a gang you don't know in there harassing the mechanic that runs the shop or something. Maybe he has, and I'm saying this and it's not meant to be anything, but like maybe he has a stutter or something, or a limp leg or something. Maybe he's a veteran who has a limp leg and he was an aircraft mechanic in the war or something like that. And these MC guys are clearly like the douchebag wannabe MC of the town that's kind of harassing the town because they're a bunch of wannabes, is I think would be important, is it kind of gives you your first enemy in your new town.
Yeah.
And so you go in, they're harassing this dude, and you have the choice, stay out of it, intervene, or, if you want to just start swinging or whatever. And, so if you intercede, the guys, we'll deal with you later, blah, blah, blah. Cause I'm thinking once you actually face up to them, they're going to back down or cower or whatever and flee. And so then the guy's like, hey man, thanks for the help, and then you the narrative plays out, hey man, I'm just looking for this for my bike. And it could kind of introduce you to like the mechanic tuning aspect of your bike, like the little customizations you can do to your bike over time. Because I think you got to have bike customization. You have
100%. Yeah.
Paint jobs, parts, upgrade engines, or whatever.
Yeah.
You could go
or
pretty
upgrade
far
new
into
bike.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking he kind of is like, I'll help you out, man. Get your bike running, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, hey, man, do you happen to know a place I can crash? And oh, there's a cot in the back if you want to sleep here.
Yeah.
And so that gives you your first, potential hideout. And then maybe the hotel you go in and it's a woman behind the desk and her boyfriend or someone's harassing her or something like that. Or you're in there talking, asking about a room and you hear screaming in one of the room and she's like, I've been trying to get these people out for a month now and they're just squatting. If you deal with them, I'll hook you up with the room. I'll give you their room if you get them out. And then you got to go do a little side quest, extorting them out and forcing these people out of the unit. Then, the restaurant, you could have whatever happen. And I'm thinking these little side quests, and it kind of introduces that side quest, but it gives you, like you said, the branching. And it could teach you, different mechanics. So, you go to mechanic, it'll teach you the bike customization. Or if you go to the hotel, maybe it teaches you about like management or something like that. Like that could be one of your places that'll give you a cut or something like that for helping you provide security for the hotel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they give you a place to stay. And the restaurant or whatever the third place is, even the alley or something like that. And I think maybe the bar would be a cool one too, because that could give you like something else, like maybe the criminal aspect, gambling or something like that. And you could help run the racket in the back. Maybe they have illegal card games, which could be cool because you got to have gambling.
Oh,
Got to be
yeah.
able to play cards in it. I think that would be really cool because you're not really knowing. You're like, oh, it's just more tutorial to walk you through new mechanics, but then you kind of stumble on it. It helps you out. And then, if you go to the hotel first and go to the mechanic the next day, you can still have the interaction, but your character would know it'd have like a variable in the coding where it realized, okay, you already got the hotel, but you can still make him a friend. You're just not going to ask him for a place to stay. So you have the different narrative that plays out where it's like, hey, man, I'll help you out with your bike, blah, blah, blah. Where are you staying? Oh, I'm staying at the hotel. Oh, yeah. Sandra, she's real cool over there. Have you met her? Yeah, I'm working with her or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And it kind of builds that you start meeting the town folk and you start developing these relationships. That way you still interact with all the mechanic stuff and all the different features that you're running into, but you have, the options there still. And so you might be sleeping at the mechanics. And then it also creates that replayability where the second time you come around in the game, you might want to try the hotel start or the shop start or the bar start or whatever. Cause the bar, it could be like, hey, if you want, you can crash out back. I got an old trailer. I think the Yellow Jack and Sandy Shores, I got an old trailer in the back and you can crash out there if you want. And maybe it's an old war guy that owns the bar or something like that. And you help him out with something or another. But from there, I think you're in the town. So you're trying to establish yourself now. So now you got to get into the, finding members, I guess you would want to before you had a clubhouse. So you got to find a way to make money now. So I think, how would that work? Would you want to immediately force the character into kind of the criminal or give him the option of criminal, but maybe maybe you could go buy a hardware store and ask for a job or get a job doing deliveries or something like that in the town to kind of make money and meet people. Cause if you had a delivery job, you could, meet characters and they'd be like, oh man, nice bike, I ride, and then you create these character relationships.
Yeah, I would like to see the relationships building. I think, like you said, back to the, when you come into town, you get options to do something. Every one of them is going to give you a benefit. It's just depending on what order you do them in, kind of tweaks it a little bit. Like you said, you go to the hotel, you get a room right away, but then you also could be protection for her. So that's a way to make money. Or if you go to the mechanic first, you get a place to stay, but you're also getting the mechanic side of things. So they each benefit you. I think, as far as the getting the money, I think doing a job or whatever, maybe you have it to where those characters are like, I could really use some help with this tomorrow. And then that's how you kind of start working with them.
Yeah.
Like whether it be doing work on the bar for the person or doing work at the hotel or helping him out with the mechanic stuff or however you do it. I think there needs to be some way that you get that option to like start helping them out with something. And then you kind of increase your reputation with them. And then maybe slowly over time, they bring you in with their friends. And then those characters can kind of start being part of the gang.
I agree. So off of that, so we kind of figured out when you get into town now. So when you get into town, you get your first night, you survive first night, the Minecraft term. You make it to your second day. Okay, so regardless, I think you should somehow either witness through a cutscene or something like that this wannabe biker gang in town. So these guys that think they're hardcore outlaw bikers, but clearly they're clowns. They're clowns that happen to own Harleys. Maybe they don't even own Harleys. Maybe they own Japanese imports pretending to be Harleys. I don't know when you actually look closer to them. So they would kind of be your protagonist. So say you help the mechanic out, and you're the next day, like you're visiting places. Cause I feel like you would explore, you'd go to different stores and check things out as it maybe one of the free form things that can happen is you run into these guys again, but it's a different part. Hey, we heard about you, blah, blah, blah. Little fist fight in the street, whatever it might be. Maybe the cops show up and you meet the cops for the town, the sheriff or something like that. And then it establishes the law side of the game. And another relationship you start with someone in town. But what do you think about the option? So we said this game is going to rely on choices. What about the option where you can completely start kind of fresh and meet people and create your club that way? Or if you're like, these dudes are a joke, I'm just going to take over their club and rename it to whatever, patch them over with my own name, and you just start going after them down a plot line. I mean, would you like to have the more civilized, I'm going to form a club that might turn into an outlaw club versus I'm going to dive right into the outlaw stuff and just take over these douchebag bikers and show them what a real bike gang should be?
Yeah, I mean, you could go that way. I mean, were you thinking that they're going to be like the main protagonists of the story the whole time? Because obviously that's probably the other gang that you got outed with, right?
Obviously, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you could do it either way. I think that they both would end up being the same. Like, you take over the club or you just have beef with the club leader. And eventually take him out and then take over the club, however you want to do that. Or I think having the option to do both would be good.
Because I'm kind of thinking, say you have the club, say the president of this little tiny club, 30 members, say, just in the entire thing, no other chapters, nothing. It's just a little hole in the wall gang that has the back of some old hardware store or abandoned building or something. They think old abandoned gas station. They think they're so cool because they got a club hideout and stuff like this. And they're doing like the lamest petty crimes. And I'm thinking it's all because of this prez. Like maybe this club used to be kind of cool in town and respected. And you have some of your old dogs in the club who are just like, I'm just biding my time at this point. This dude's an idiot. He's gonna get himself offed or tick off the wrong person or whatever. And so if you go down this path of interacting with this joke of a club, and maybe you meet these old dogs and you have the option to either try and take it over and patch it over with your own name because the reputation of this club's been destroyed beyond all opportunity. It has to be patched over. It can't go by that name anymore, which gives you the option to create your own club still.
Yeah.
And the old dogs are like, look, we'll help you from the inside the best we can, but we can't break the rule of turning on our brothers. But we can look the other way on some things.
Yeah, I think that would be a good transition into like starting your club. It's like maybe that you run into some of the guys that are like, this dude's a complete idiot. And then you're like, well, I'll help you out. Like, do something for them. And they're like, all right, we'll get your back. Like, let's take over this club. And then that's how you kind of segue into that. Like, here's where you start your own club and you get to, I don't know if you necessarily get the whole freedom to name it because obviously there's art styles and stuff like that are going to be in the game. But that's like a good way to kind of, like I said, segue into the whole, like, now I have my own club type thing.
I mean, you could do that's a mechanic we can break into. I love when we find little mechanics because, like I said, most of this is about the narrative of the game, how the game would flow. Mechanics, so club choice. So you get into whatever it is. If you start from scratch or you take over the club or whatever, they sit you down in the room, what room's going to be your church type thing. And you got whoever's going to be like your first secretary. I don't think you should do your VP right away. I think it should be like your club secretary, the dude you're going to trust to do the books for the club, whoever it might be. And your guy's like, look, man, these are the ideas I got. Boom. And he does a little animation of laying out some papers across the table. And it's got like 4 or 5 logos or even 3 logos you could choose from.
Yeah.
And he's like, these are the ideas I've come up with. And then you pick one of the 3. And then he's like, and these are the names I got. And it's like, it gives you a little list on a fake piece of paper, think LA Noir style. And you just select what you want. The guy fake circles it. Let's go with that. And he's like, I like how that sounds. And then, you have your pre-selected stuff. You don't have to deal with trying to generate a graphic or anything like that. They're all pre-programmed. Then you come up with some cool ideas. And then, you have your club. Or if you say you take over the club, if for some reason you like the old name, you're like, no, I think we should stay with the old name. And you just tell the game to stay with the old name,
Right.
or something like that. And it would be a simple mechanic, but it wouldn't be doing any inputs or having to put a graphic creator in it or anything like that. And it would also help people that don't really care about that stuff. They just want to play.
Yeah, exactly.
But from there, you start your club. So building your club out, I think that's the mechanic we could talk about now. So you start your club, you basically start. Now, how are your members introduced? Now, is it going to be every member of your club is a named member, or is it going to be you basically build like your officers of the club, and then like you get no names that prospect in over time, these NPCs that are basically your cannon fodder for the game? So these are the guys that could ride out with you. If they get shot on a mission and die, it's really not a big deal. The game could generate names for them, but they're not really officers in your club. Your officers and stuff would be your named characters that are gonna not so much die. They might do the classic kneel over. I'm hit and injured, and as soon as the mission's over, they fade back or whatever. That way, they can stay in the story until an intentional death is planned or a mission that
Yeah.
allows them to die.
Yeah, I think that you stick with like your main people, and maybe you don't get them all right away, obviously. Like, because I would like to see as you progress through the story. I think if you're doing the whole club takeover thing, if that's what we're deciding to do, which I think is a good
It's
way
an
to kind
option.
of go into it, is that you get like, okay, the club's taken over now. Now who's staying with us? And then like maybe a bunch of them leave, but it's you and two other dudes.
Yeah.
And that's just where you're like, okay, well, these guys are in it for me then. But say like you go back to that dude who's like a bike mechanic, but
Yeah.
he's like hating his job or something like that. You can go back to him eventually, and then you build him out as like, okay, I'm going to bring this guy in and he's going to be part of the story. But then he adds that boost of like, when I need my bike worked on, I already have him now, but you don't have that immediately. So like every person that is important in the gang, kind of you build over the time, because you're not going to get all the benefits of having all these people right away. Like maybe you get a guy that works at the shooting range or something like that, and he can get guns for your club, but you're not immediately going to have him right away. And then I like the idea that you said where you have people that are just kind of throwaway people. They just slowly recruit over time.
Yeah.
And, maybe you have to wait a couple days before you can do another mission or something like that, or a heist or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Before you have enough people to do it, because the game's like, you don't have enough people in the gang. So you have to wait, and maybe you can do something to speed up recruitment or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could have it gated by time or days in the game, where there's like once a week you can have like a party at the clubhouse, and you'll have
Right.
a bunch of people show up based on your club's reputation, which again we agreed is kind of an important part of this aspect. Is more people could show up, or maybe if the town's mad at you, less people show up. Or if you had an interaction with like a club that got recently like run over and the club disbanded or something, maybe if you helped out someone in the mission, quote, behind the scenes, they let their guys know that there's a club in town that's cool and we could go talk to them and stuff like that. I mean, there's options, but I think the no names, kind of the cannon fodder of characters, would be important, which kind of leads me to another mechanic that I think would be kind of cool. Is so for now, we'll call them the unnamed characters. So these are the NPCs that are basically throwaways. They don't really have any interactions. They'll have, their pre-canned lines. Hey, man, what's up? Or whatever. Yeah, boss, or whatever it might be. They just kind of are there. They're not really the ones you talk to. And then you have your named characters, which would be like the mechanic or the hotel owner or whoever. And I think those are the people you encounter in the game. And it's like you don't know who's going to become a named character in your crew or who's going to become a true friend. And you run into these people. And I think you run into the option is like if you get their relationship high enough, and obviously the game would have a pre-selection of so many people, because you can mess up relationships too and not get them.
Yeah.
I think is very important. And you lose that bonus, like you said, the mechanic. Like if you didn't help the mechanic, he's not going to probably want to join your crew later. He won't trust you enough, but you can still utilize his services. He's just not going to give you that discount or deal or whatever, or come work for you. But I think what it is, though, is you can recruit named characters. Like if you develop the right relationship path with them, you're like, hey, you want to join my MC or whatever, and based off of how far, it'll either black out the option to recruit them or whatever, and they come join, and they'll be like your patched, like again, pointing out a show, but Sons of Anarchy, like they have some of the guys, like you had the main guys in the club, and then you had like the Men of Mayhem or whatever they called it, like the senior members of the club. So these would be your named characters. And I think these would be the guys, like if you manage to recruit them, they give a perk to the club, whether it be discount on mechanics or a hookup on guns or whatever. I mean, bring in a lawyer, for crying out loud. He can, if named members get arrested, it's less time in jail or have a chance of being let out or whatever. And then I think from that pool of the named characters, your senior members, is how you build your officers for your club. So you can't promote like a no name. But if you get any of these name guys, then say, I'm just using this as a hypothetical, but like the mechanic, if you recruit him to your MC, he gives you a 5% discount on repairs. But if you promote him to road captain or something, he'll give you like 50% off or something like that, or all repairs are free.
Yeah.
Something like that if you promote him into an officer role. I think they should have a tiered role system, but I think, and it would take a bit more effort here, but because obviously you couldn't have an infinite amount of people to join the club, but you're not going to have so many of these named members. You're not going to have hundreds of them in your crew. I think that you have like, I don't know, 30 or 40 possible, and it creates that collectability in the game too, where like as you're playing, when you realize you can grow out these skilled players versus unskilled, cannon fodder labor. Maybe they shoot better or fight better or ride better or whatever, or can do certain like passive quests for you. Like you can send them out to do a gun run for you, and you stay in the club and do other stuff, and they go out for a couple of days, disappear, and come back with results and money or whatever can go wrong. And maybe their skills affect that. Maybe they're better. You get a certain guy that's better at doing gun runs or better at working on stuff or whatever it might be. But what do you think on that?
I think that's a good way to balance it. I think that like each of the main named characters that you run into, you have the option of like filling out your club and like how you want your club statistics to look, I guess. So like each character you promote or bring into the club or whatever like that. Like you said, if you promote them up, you get better, maintenance on your vehicles, or you get better guns if you promote this guy up. And I think that's a good way to kind of make it to where like it would be like your skill level of your gang, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of balance it how you want to. I like it. I think there is one other thing that I was thinking of when you were talking about that, and you may have it coming up, but I think the ability to have chapters might be kind of cool.
Oh, yes.
So like the way I was thinking about doing it is that, if as you progress through the story, you're going to come across other towns, I would assume. And, maybe as you do more missions in the town, or you have to bring fill some sort of bar, or, have to get to a certain point. And then once you're at that point, maybe you can establish a chapter there. And really all it is just like you have another gang there, but all they really do is like they could either bring you in more money, or like if you're in that area and you need help, you can call your chapter and they can come help you out with stuff. Like if you're taking shots from another gang or something like that, they could just act as more just people. I think would be really cool. They don't really, I wouldn't say they really directly impact your gameplay experience as far as like you need to have the chapters. But like it gives you that more of that progression system, like you're taking over certain areas of this map, all to kind of build up to the last part of the story, I would assume.
Okay. So based off of that, though, I agree with you. I thought a bit about the chapters too. So let's kind of tangent on a side mechanic here, because we've kind of established, the basic structure of the club. So you're going to have these named members that you can promote. And I think too, real quick before we progress, is they can, when you promote them, like you really have to decide that you want to promote them into this role. So I think if you like promote someone to secretary, you can't just immediately go, okay, you can't be secretary anymore because I want this guy's perks. I
Right.
think it has to have some drawback. Like he'll be upset with you, or you'll lose his benefits for so long because he's mad because you trusted him as secretary and you're like, nah, I want this guy to do it instead. Because if that not, you're going to have people hot swapping characters
Yeah,
constantly.
exactly.
And I think maybe there's a chance, like if you do it, so when you're choosing these secretary or these officer slots, your road captain, your sergeant at arms, your vice president's obviously the biggest choice, but your secretary, whatever, you could have your aces or whatever, which is like your four, basically your hit squad. And it's like your baddest fighting dudes you could promote into these four slots. And maybe there's a very depending on what role they are and how long they've been there and things like that, little factors you could put in the back end code is you could lose them. Like if you tick someone off enough, they're like, screw this club, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like you burned me, dude. I've been loyal to you, and then you just replace me with this new guy. I mean, come on. And he goes off, and then you lose that benefit. And I think that'll create that where you really got to kind of pay attention. And I'm not saying, and this is strictly for like officer roles. So it's not like, I think so say Mechanic Joe or whatever we call him, Mechanic Charlie or whatever, the guy that you recruit as a mechanic. So say you recruit him to your club. Now, would you bring him in would he have to patch in like a normal MC would? Does he have to come in as a prospect? And maybe he has to do a few missions with you as the prospect. And then it'll be like, Charlie's ready to promote or patch in. And then you can patch him in, and it does the little narrative at the clubhouse where you go, oh, here's your patch, man, and do the little narrative ceremony. And everyone's like, clap, 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 clap. Charlie gets his patch. Now he's a patched member.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good way to do it. I think that you should have some core people that right off the bat are going to be with you, and maybe they
Yeah.
don't bring you any stats or anything like that. It's just
Yeah.
part of the story. And then like you said, as you go out and meet these other people, you have the option to invite them to be part of your club, and then they're like, okay, well, I want to patch in. And then, yeah, it's like an overtime thing. Like you have to
Yeah.
bring them on more missions or something like that. And then once they complete X amount of missions, they're like, okay, now you can patch this guy in. And then he slowly, like, once he's a patched member, then down the line, when you're starting to decide how you want your leveling to go and your
Yeah.
benefits to work out, you can pick from those people. And
Yeah.
then they're part of the story, but you get some sort of interface that's like, okay, here's my patched main members, however you want to do it. And then you're just like, I want him to fill this role,
Yeah.
and then you can see you can see the printout of like what kind of stats you're going to get and what kind of benefits he's going to bring you if he's in that role type thing.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think it could be as simple as like not saying like, maybe, Charlie the mechanic, he has a 5% repair bonus if he's a senior member in your club. So once he's established in the club, he gives you your discount. Then if you promote him to an officer, he gives 25% or whatever. But then maybe you do like slot based, like if he's your secretary, he does this, but if he's your sergeant at arms, he does this. Or maybe it's as simple as like his legacy perk or officer perk or whatever is like if Charlie's the road captain, he gives this bonus, but he doesn't give an extra bonus to any of the other roles. So it's like this guy's kind of meant to be your road captain if you
yeah,
want him to be. And you could have different people with different perks for that role, or you could have like, uh, James, whatever, any officer role will give this perk. And it's focused on one position. So it kind of helps guide you into some way. So you feel like, I don't know who to promote into what or whatever like that. And then it also helps your narrative scripting for the game where you're like, okay, Charlie's a mechanic. We're going to kind of write him to be a road captain. So it kind of inclines the player to choose that versus a secretary or something where they don't get an extra perk or
yeah,
something along that line. That way your narratives are fixed for storylines and stuff like that. Or you could even go as far as like kind of scripting who's getting promoted over time and stuff like that. Maybe the VP is the one you choose from your group of trusteds, and the other ones kind of fill naturally over the story.
yeah.
And then they
I mean,
give a
that could be a
perk.
way too. Yeah, and I think that they should all level up over time. Like
Oh, I agree.
if you're having to go out on missions to do stuff, you can see like, okay, I need four people to come with me on this, and then you can choose out of however many people you have
Yeah.
unlocked essentially. And like if you're not taking people with you, they're just going to stay at that level, and
Yep.
then you can see like after X amount of levels up they provide more of that benefit. Or I mean, you could do it so many different ways.
And then you have,
Crazy.
maybe a management screen in there when you're in the clubhouse. You can view the members of your club, like the roster, and
Yeah.
it shows like their trust level in the club, their loyalty level, what perks they've unlocked, their bikes, or maybe the little things you can tweak on their character. I'm not saying full like customization of replacing how they look and stuff, but like little tweaks. Maybe you can give them like an extra patch or something like that that boosts their fighting. Like slap like the Ace of Spades on their vest. You give them the Ace of Spades patch, and that boosts their combat fighting by 10% or something like that. So you can kind of perk out your members with slots.
Yeah.
And it adjusts their vest visually. Since you're kind of using a pre-made vest, it's not full customization. It would be easy to slot in the looks of things, and it would allow you to kind of customize your guys, and you'd kind of pick and choose loadouts sort of for your guys. Oh, Charlie's going to carry a shotgun, and Ralph's going to carry just a 1911 or something like that. I don't want him carrying a rifle or a shotgun because he's better with a one-handed pistol or something like that, maybe. And whatever his name is, uses chains and swings chains at people. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you could cut it up a bunch of different ways, but yeah, I see what you're saying though. It's like a slot system.
Yeah,
You
and it would
choose
just
their
give you
loadout.
perks.
Yeah, choose their loadout type thing, choose their perks, and then, you can get them on a better motorcycle, and that'll make them faster
Yeah.
to do things or whatever, So there's a bunch of different ways you could do it.
All right, so back to what we were discussing when, of course, I tangented. The world. So we kind of briefly touched on this a couple times here and there. The world. What is the world that these guys exist in? Obviously, I think we had kind of agreed it would be kind of a fictionally inspired by U.S.
Yeah.
world. I mean, are we talking like Southwest U.S., Arizona, California, Nevada?
Yeah, and that was going to be one of my questions too, is like the setting of it. I mean, I think if you were doing like West Coast stuff, that would make the most sense to me.
Yeah.
California, Nevada, Arizona type area.
Mm-hmm.
Have some desert, but then you have mountainous areas. I mean, it's all depending on how big the map is going to be. Are you thinking like Red Dead sized map, GTA sized map?
Red Dead size map. Pretty substantial, but not overwhelming. I think it should be like, maybe they call it like the tri-state or something like that, or quad state. And I'm just saying, as an example for the setting, like the deserts and stuff like that. So I think you have maybe on the west coast of the map, we say it's inspired by the west coast of the United States. So if you go to the west side of the map, you have the beaches and the coastline. If you go north, you have kind of the foresty mountains like you would like Oregon or Washington, like the Pacific Northwest. You go to south and to the east, you get into the deserts and stuff like that. Not in your town could kind of be in the middle somewhere. And you just have like 3 or 4 states named, and just whatever the fictional name is. And you start out in the one, and this would kind of go with what your chapter's idea is. So like you could expand in the different towns around the map, and you could send, either a name character to run the chapter. Maybe that's your choice, of these 50 or 60 name people that you can run into throughout the game in towns. Because I think every town, you should have a few strangers that you can interact with and recruit. So you can run into these guys and you join them into your crew, and you're like, hey, man, I know you're from this area. You want to run this chapter or something like that. And you start branching out, and this creates territory, and you start running into rival gangs. And maybe not every gang has a narrative like this starting chump gang that you run into does.
Right.
But I think that would also feed into the whole protagonist of this gang you ran away from. You're going to run into them at some point if you start expanding these chapters. And they're going to start expanding as well because they're doing their thing as well. And maybe you clash at some point. And that's where, maybe the story kind of guides you in the direction of creating a chapter in a certain spot, and you run into the other gang.
Yeah.
That you
and
got
then you're
away
like,
from.
oh, I know you guys.
Yeah. And then they find out where you are, and then you start running into problems with them in your hometown.
Yeah.
And then you start having runs getting ambushed and stuff, kind of like the passive stuff in Red Dead with like train robberies and raids and stuff like that. Is you can have these things happen. And, you could have a pop up on the map like, hey, the convoy got hit going from town A to town C. And you can ride out there yourself with your own crew, and maybe you get there in time or something. The only problem is if we're talking like 80s, you don't have cell phones yet.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit different.
But maybe, someone calls from a payphone. Oh, I got away and I called the blah, blah, blah. There's a thing here, or, you walk into the clubhouse and it triggers the Radiant quest where it's like, hey, we just got a call from the convoy going from here to here. They're having problems, and then it points the pin on the map and you head there and it triggers whatever the quest is, the Radiant protection or whatever like that. And you can be like, hey, so and so called, and you don't really have to have it. Could be kind of a canned repeat message, but you can have these random protection events or raids or ambushes or things you have to deal with.
Right.
And you could also, while you're out riding with your formation, you don't necessarily have to have all your officers with you. You could have a bunch of no names riding with you just as protection. And you might run into the bad gang and you just get into it with them on the side of the road. And, you loot whatever they have. They might be making a gun run. They might be running drugs, whatever it might be. And you can loot their stuff or whatever. Or you
Yeah.
can set them up, ambush them. You get intel maybe through some quest or buying intel off of a NPC or something. And they let you know, hey, they're running a route from here and here if you want to disrupt it. And you can start, and you kind of get into the territory wars. And if you want to take over town L, it's being run by the enemy gang. You got to get them out of the town first before you can take it over.
Yeah, I got to push them back. I think that's important too, because I think that you're going to need towards the end of the game to like complete it. You're going to need you're going to need your different chapters and stuff like that to come all help you with whatever final fight scene or whatever it's going to be, like I think that's kind of the whole buildup of the thing is you're just expanding your one small town biker gang into a massive multi-town chapter gang.
I agree.
That helps you out. So.
And I think you could get into the mechanics of, because if we're kind of modeling off the, the West, Midwest, then you can run into the like CHP inspired police force on the freeways and the highways and stuff like that. And, I'm thinking if we do kind of the early 80s, late 70s era, we could kind of say that's when the freeways are starting to develop. But it's mostly like Route 66 or state highways or things like that, not these straight as an arrow, 4-lane things. And based off of that, though, so we say, like 3 or 4 states in Red Dead size. So it take a good, half hour to get from map to map or something like that, riding, fast and nonstop. Or you can, but, the game's going to want to kind of draw you to check out places. Like you'll be riding on this highway. And I definitely think it has to have the exploration fog of war type thing with the map system.
Yeah.
Where like as you cruise, you can discover a town you didn't know was there. And you're like, oh, what's this little hole in the wall of town? And it's like a gas station on the side of the highway. And you go in, there's a little side quest with the owner or someone there. And then you can like take it over as like a front or something like that, like a storage shop to store stuff on a
safe
route.
house or something like that. Yeah. And that's how you kind of expand your areas.
So off of that, the criminal side. So obviously we have the basic criminal stuff, running, whatever, gun running, drug running, whatever. Think you'd have like petty crimes, like you could do robberies and things like that, both passive and stuff like pull out a gun, point at someone's head. That's going to trigger the robbery interaction. Gang raids and thefts. If you maybe find out where, the bad guy gang has their warehouse, you can go rob the warehouse and steal stuff. Businesses. So like businesses in towns. Would you want an option where like you can run protection rackets or set up like maybe like certain places you can set up like gambling parlors in the back or things like that, little fronts you could run to like launder your money or hide your things?
I think that would be good. And I think that you would, I guess for simplicity of the game, like maybe just do it in your like starting town.
Yeah.
I don't think you should have a lot of influence on the other towns.
Yeah.
Just because of, for simplicity reason, like your main gang is in that one town. So you should be able to upgrade essentially that one town, whether it be like a slotting system or whatever, where you're like, you have the options to go to these certain businesses and then like you can turn that business into whatever, front for your money or gambling hall, or you can buy a bar, but kind of upgrade that town slowly as you build your game or as you go through the game and build your gang up. And then obviously like the points in the different towns, you can have like safe houses, which you can teleport to or whatever to make fast travel work in the game if you wanted to do that. but you're not your main focus is the one town that you're in.
Right.
And then all those things obviously bring you benefits as time goes on, right? Like if you're setting up gambling halls or doing rackets for businesses and stuff like that, you're going to make the passive money over time.
Right.
It's not going to be as much as like going and doing a heist on a rival gang's, gun run or something like that, but you're still going to be able to make money off of it.
I agree. One interesting way you could do it potentially would be, say you go on the road and you run into, let's categorize the locations on the thing. So like these towns or cities or whatever it might be. So you have basically like your roadside towns, because we're not doing freeways. So all the roads are probably going to run through towns at some point. So you run into a small town that might have your basic amenities. So like your basic town, that's going to have like a gas station, a clothing shop or something like that, general store type thing where you can buy supplies, and maybe like a mechanic or something like that. But you can't build a clubhouse there. You can't, you might be able to build like a warehouse. There might be a warehouse plot or something you could buy or take over or whatever. Maybe through a quest, you unlock a warehouse or a safe house or something like that. But you can't really expand into this town. It's just not there. It's too small. But then you get into like a medium town, like your starting town, and you have all your amenities. So you have full service. So you have gas stations, mechanics, clothing stores, weapon stores, whatever it might be, that you can build a clubhouse in these areas. So what I think would be the added store you would have in a town is like a realtor's office. So like the bigger towns that you can do more in would basically, you find a realtor in the town, you go into the realtor and they're like, hey, we have these places for sale. And it's pre-configured lots. You X amount of money. If you do a mission for the realtor, in some of the places they'll give you a deal or hook you up with something, whatever it might be. But basically you can buy lots. So it could be like an old abandoned gas station, an old warehouse, an old bar, or something like that. And so you buy them. It becomes a quote safe house of sorts. Not necessarily your clubhouse, but your safe house. So say in one town you buy a bar, gas station, I don't know, a bowling alley. And it's a pre-configured location. It's set up. You can basically then start a front in them. So like if it's a bar, you could open up a gambling parlor in the back with an upgrade, and it would make you passive income. And it also could serve as a safe house. So a place to sleep, a place to save, a place to heal, whatever it might be. And so you buy these 3 locations in the town. Now, what I think would be cool is the 3 locations, say you want to expand in this town, you own the 3 properties, you can choose which one to make your clubhouse. So you can make the bar your clubhouse, the bowling alley, or the old gas station, you can make your clubhouse. And so you basically pay for the upgrade, it upgrades it into the clubhouse, then your gang can operate out of that. It's not just a in-between staging point. And it gives you whatever passive, then you can do upgrades like add an armory, add a tattoo shop or whatever in it, just as basic examples, but ways you could, now this clubhouse provides weapons, and you come in, you can get automatic or free weapon ammo or whatever like that because you have an armory or a garage installed out back. And so it would be pre-configured locations. There's no like build it out with grids or anything like that. It's just like it has upgrades. And so it would be, in that way you could do every town. It wouldn't feel the same in every town. It wouldn't be like, oh, you got a warehouse, a gas station, and a bar. Be like, this town has a bowling alley, and it offers like a unique passive benefit if you were opening it, like a way to launder money or whatever it might be,
Yeah, it gives you options to do things.
And it's not over the top.
Yeah, and that could be the way too, like you get to a town and you talk to a realtor or whatever, see a clubhouse up for sale or something that you can make in a clubhouse. That could be the way that you start that. You have to find the money for it, get the money, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to buy this. And then that's how you start your chapter.
And then, like I said, since everything's pre-built, so all your upgrades are ghosted until you upgrade it, and then it changes the layout automatically or whatever, the adapt for the changes. Because like if it was the bowling alley, like it would be all in the back of the bowling alley.
Right.
Like the locker room might have a hidden door that opens up and takes you into the armory or whatever it might be. That way, and then you go in during like business hours and, it's just a bowling alley and NPCs are in there bowling.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're making you passive income legally. So you're making your legal income off the bowling alley. Or if you have a gas station, the gas station's making you passive money during the day. And so you're making money off of it. And then you can have your clubhouse attached to it because some of them may not have the ability. Some of them might just be small passive locations. So those towns with nothing, like you could buy a gas station, it would just provide free gas for you or free repairs or whatever it might be, but you can't establish a clubhouse there because the town's not configured for a clubhouse.
Right.
And it would be simple like that. And so then you're creating that passive, because I'm kind of thinking of it's a really old game now, is Godfather for like the Xbox. Is it
Okay.
kind of had that where you could kind of set up business fronts and there wasn't any like place stuff here or anything like that. You just bought it and you could do upgrades and things like that to improve it, increase the security because it could be rated and things like that. So you could be like, oh, well, I'm going to pay an extra $2,500 and have armed guards or, whatever. Or you could have it managed through the clubhouse in that town, hey, I'm going to assign 6 guys to guard the bowling alley because it's my money maker. And, maybe the bowling alley increases recruiting for that town because it's a social place. So you can have guys in there, quote, recruiting new members, and it increases the recruitment for that town. And you get those no names at an increased rate.
Yeah. Just start filling up the roster. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that could work too. I think that's a good way to do it. I think it gives you that drive to find new places in the game, and you're trying to figure out what's purchasable, what's not, and then kind of set up your areas based off of that.
Yeah. So I agree. I think the one thing you would have to is, despite all the clubhouses in the game you might open or new chapters, I think you're forced your headquarters stays in hometown.
I agree. Yeah, I think if that's your main focus. I
Yeah.
think that you don't, as the player, like you want to eventually get all these passive places to make you income, right? But you want to be able to do the most in your hometown because that's obviously your town A. That's where you started it, so that's where you should have the most options to do things. And then as you spread out, that's where you get options to do little things here and there. But you start making your way through it.
So I think that would kind of go on the back of that as like heat, for example, like cops and law enforcement in the game is the more crime you do, the more heat you're going to draw. And so, if you just did a big heist of a bank robbery or something like that, a crazy thing is say it gives you the max heat, you're not going to want to do criminal activity for a while. So then you might start relying on these passive businesses to supplement your income while it cools down.
Exactly.
And, you could have gang heat too with the different factions. So you have your faction relationships, because maybe you can make alliances with some of the smaller MCs you run into. And, that way when you ride through their area, you're friendly with them, so they won't bother you at all when you or your guys ride through the area.
Yeah,
But
and they
if you
can
tick
also
them
serve as
off,
extra help.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, then the NPCs, say the Aztecas or whatever, the other gang in that area, you're in the area and the big bad guys come in to attack you, ambush you. Their NPCs see it because you're cool with them. They're going to help you out because you got a alliance or whatever built with them.
Yeah, you're friendly, and they're like, we got this, we got their back, and yeah, they can help you benefit by doing other things. That's how they could benefit you. Is like if you need to go run something in that certain area, you call up those guys, and you're like, hey, we need extra 5 dudes. Perfect.
Yeah.
Start helping out. I had a question for you with this. So since it's obviously a big world and stuff like that, would you plan on only allowing the player to ride a motorcycle, or would you give them an option to have like vans or cars that they could use at their disposal for other things instead of the motorcycle stuff? Like obviously we would want that to be the main focus, but like in the realistically, a gang's going to have maybe like a panel van or something. I know that's taken from like Sons of Anarchy, but they have a van that's like, something that they can get away in and nobody's going to know it was them type thing.
I thought about this a lot because that's actually something I've thought about. Is I think you would have to have cars and vehicles.
I
think
think
you have to, because you have runs and things like that you need to do that bikes just don't work for. You're not going to be able to carry 5 crates of AK-47s on the back of a Harley. It's not feasible.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I mean, you could dumb it down and say, oh, well, when you start a transport mission, the NPCs drive the ghost van and you just escort it. But I think the option to drive should be there, especially for when your gang's much smaller.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because you also open up the other criminal aspect, is stealing cars, hijackings, things like that. Maybe if you have a garage in a town and you set it up as a chop shop, is one of the potential fronts you could run. Is so you steal cars, bring them in, and they chop it up, and you make money off of them. Or you can, have them swap the plates and swap the VINs, but it might take so long or whatever, and then but I feel like driving has to be there. So the cars would have to drive well. Absolutely. Or else it would feel like an afterthought.
Yeah, I
But
think they need to be up there with the bikes, but obviously the focus is gonna be the bikes. I mean, that's the premise of the game is a biker gang. Um, but I think that's important because yeah, I mean, you're gonna, say your bike gets destroyed and you're like on foot and
yeah,
you
you
got to
should be able
steal
to
a
steal a
car or
car.
something like that to get back or whatever, or use them, as like a getaway vehicle or whatever. I think that those are all important to have.
I think the way you would kind of gate that is you can't really customize cars.
Yeah,
They would just
exactly.
kind of be like the way they are. I mean, yeah, you could take it to a garage and have them swap the plates or whatever, maybe paint it, but you wouldn't be able to do like wheels and exhaust and engine upgrades and stuff. Maybe with like your club vans or something, if you're using it as a vehicle, maybe you can do performance upgrades and it's like a generic upgrade that makes it a little bit quicker where you can like armor it or things like that to help with quests that cost money. But as for like detailed customization, no.
Yeah, it should just be pretty basic. And like you should be able to acquire them for your club and your main area, but you're not going to have influence over other clubs. Maybe they get just a list of generic vehicles that you can kind of put together when you're doing a heist type thing. Like, okay, we're going to need this many bikers and we're going to need 2 vans or something like that. And kind of customize what you want to bring into that operation.
I agree. I think there should be customization because I feel like you should be able to take the game as you have your linear story that the game's going to follow, obviously. But at the same time, you should be able to play your club the way you want to. You want to focus on drugs or guns or car theft or whatever it might be. You should be able to focus your efforts on that and kind of tailor your club to fit that type of play. And that way you don't feel forced into whatever the game's just feeding you. Obviously, you'll have your main storyline, but it would kind of be fluid where it's not based off of what you're doing so much as just the fact the club's progressing is what fuels the main storyline.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And maybe you have points in the game where you can't progress the storyline until your club is of a certain level or a certain amount of people or something like that because the storyline wouldn't make sense if you didn't have, 20 people in the gang or 2 chapters or whatever.
yeah, that's what I think is like limiting it behind like chapter counts or control of a territory, maybe, or certain reputation or something like that can restrict certain things from happening. Maybe it won't black and white it always, where it's like, oh, you need level 5 to do this. It's just maybe it hints at it like, oh man, I don't know if we have enough guys to do this right now. We might need to recruit a few more first. And the game kind of tells you maybe you need a few more guys to do this mission first.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
he's like, hey boss, maybe are you sure you want to do this right now? I don't think we have enough guys to do this. And it's like maybe come back later once we recruit a few more members. And things like that that kind of visual cue you or audio cue you that okay, I need more guys to do this. Or man, we're gonna need a semi truck and a box trailer to do this. We can't do it with what we got. Or we're gonna need more firepower than that, or whatever it might be. You can do cues where it's not just blatant like, nope, ain't happening.
Yeah.
And with that, it's kind of back to what we were talking about with the chapter. So like you go into the town, you run into these little crews or whatever and small MCs. And I think like we see that on the positive, you can develop alliances, work with them, missions, stuff like that. They can help you out. You can help them out. But at the same time, like certain towns, maybe just some of the gangs don't cooperate and you could force a patch over. Like your influence, maybe you have enough guys that you can just overpower them and they're like, we don't have the numbers to compete with you. We got to patch over. And you
Yeah.
just take it over. You get their clubhouse, their members that stay. Maybe there's a chance of a percentage leaving, like in a lot of cases there might be. And then you take over it. So maybe if you go more of the power play option, I'm going to build this army of an MC club that's a fighting group, not a tactic or strategy based group. You can brute force your way into some of these towns that do have an established club. And some clubs you may go into town, and the second you start trying to buy stuff in there and they see you riding around, they got a problem with you. And yeah, it won't be a main storyline amount that this main protagonist gang is, but it would be a little side quest you have to deal with, this little small gang. And you could patch them over. And that would be another way to obtain property where it's not like, oh man, we need $100,000 to buy this clubhouse. It's like, no, we go into town, then we got to figure out where their clubhouse is, what their operations are. And you can maybe send out some of your guys as scouts and they can bring back intel after X amount of time. They're like, hey, we found out these 3 locations might be the warehouse that they're using or something like that. And so you can get into this whole sideline of like looking into these crews and trying to figure out ways. And then you can either start ambushing them or just full frontal assault them or try and like talk to them and be like, hey, look, you don't want to go to war with us, buddy. We'll wipe you off the face of the planet. And, things like that. Maybe certain ways where you can influence the town. Maybe the town doesn't like this MC club, and you go and you do little side quests for the law or something like that and help the police start arresting them or setting them up to take falls or whatever it might be in the little storylines that you could potentially play out.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what do you think? So, I mean, we have pretty much the flow of the game and everything that's going on with it and kind of the mechanics and how you would upgrade the gang system. Now, do you think that this game would just be purely, strictly single player? Or would you want it to have a
Ooh,
co-op story mode side to it and even online?
that could be very interesting because I feel like the story's kind of meant to portray the single player aspect. Now, the way you could easily fix this for co-op multiplayer, because I know co-op doesn't get the love it deserves. So say you want to make it a 2-player co-op game, we go back to what we said in the initial, because of course the script is up for play of the exact linear flow of this game, but we've figured out the concept is, remember the initial thing, you and your buddy starting a club together?
Yeah, exactly.
You could have that set up. Think of what was that game? It's No Way Out or something like that. It's the one where you and your buddy both go to jail for a murder or something like that, and you help each other get out. And it's a bunch of like co-op based like missions to get out of the jail and stuff like that. The tag team style of play where you got to go through this door, I got to go through this door. You could do that, is have that option where maybe you start the storyline with that. That way, if you and me wanted to play together, you would play as the buddy and we would
Right.
both be working together. And I mean, you'd have to reconfigure the story some, but it could be plausible and you could still play that very much as a single player game. And he would, quote, be your VP. And then you
Yeah,
just eliminate that
exactly.
VP mechanic because, like I said, choosing that VP should be the very important choice. And it's got to be someone you would trust. So if you say, okay, we have a pre-designated VP that no matter what, he becomes the VP in the story, then yeah, co-op is definitely doable. And if it could be written that way, I absolutely think co-op could be cool. Do I think it should be the focus of the game? No, I think it should be able to be playable fully in single player or fully in co-op if you did go that route. But I
Yeah,
think it
I
has
agree.
to feel organic, not just drop in. You're basically clones of each other. You have to feel it. So when you're both watching a cutscene together, it's your characters interacting with each other.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it feel more real instead of just like, oh, we're both just seeing the one guy here, but I'm actually helping you out on the side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that you could, to get people in? I mean, we see it with Red Dead Online, GTA Online. Do you think that there could be an online function to this, with there being like clubs that you could set up in an online player thing? Or I mean, like, it would be very interesting to see how that works just due to like map size and stuff. And like, obviously people wouldn't be just playing on the same server all the time, like a private server. It'd be like online servers. I mean, I think you could have the option for a private server if you did it, but how would you think to organize that for an online, like free roam type multiplayer thing where you could do heists or missions or stuff like that and kind of unlock certain things that you
I
didn't have in single player?
I think it would have to be kind of like how, Rockstar does it in the way that they do GTA Online and Red Dead Online, is it kind of was its own entity. It used the same framework and engine and how it plays, but they scrubbed the storyline out of the game and created its own like light story. And you could do something like that. There'd be a lot of balancing though in it to get it
Yeah,
configured, because you're talking essentially you're going to be making a play by service game if we're talking like Rockstar. So to sustain it, you're going to have to sustain servers. And are we talking 20, 30 players, or are we talking hundreds of players in a
right.
lobby?
And that's where it would have to be a balance between, I think, the map size and like how it would make sense. Because like I think you could do the whole thing where, a multiplayer, instead of being gated for where your clubhouse is in the single player, maybe in multiplayer, you can choose one of the 5 different states or however you want to do it. You can set up a clubhouse in that area, and then that's just where your clubhouse is, and you can kind of, over time deck it out how you wanted to. And then I think Doesn't Red Dead Online do like the posses or something like that, where you
Mm,
can invite your buddies to
yeah,
join it?
they
So I
do.
mean, you could do something like that where maybe you have NPC people that will help you out if you're just playing multiplayer online by yourself in your own gang, but then you have the option to like invite your friends in and then you can do those missions with your buddies or just roam around and do whatever.
I mean, I think there's potential there, but I think it would have to be handled kind of like Red Dead did or GTA did. I think it would kind of have to be almost its own separate game.
Yeah.
And I think you'd pull from what this game is as a root. I think two-player co-op perfectly fine to mix into this game. I think it would work well as long as you wrote the story accordingly, where it could be played with or without the second player, without having to rewrite the entire game twice. So if we tweaked it slightly at the beginning, you had your buddy, that's the solution. As for the multiplayer, the thing you're going to run into, I think, is are you doing missions like GTA where you go into instances from the free roam lobby, like races or whatever it might be, deathmatch and stuff like that? Are these things in here, or are we talking it's going to be just a persistent world that you can have territories and things like that fill up these lobbies and different MCs rolling around without all these little things? And they could do heists or extortions or things like that. But are there little like instance lobbies that spawn out of the main free roam?
I think so because I think doing it as a persistent world would be hard,
I
especially
do
if you
too.
weren't doing private servers because people are going to have overlapping territories. If you're hopping on one day and you have your clubhouse in this area, odds are somebody else is probably too. So there would have to be those like instance lobbies essentially that happen where it's like get into a gang shootout or like a drug run or something like that, like little lobbies that you can go do stuff in, but you're still in that open world free roam aspect.
I
Where if
agree.
you run into another multiplayer, you obviously, you know, can shoot them or do whatever you want to them. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's what Rockstar does with their stuff, and it works out fine. Um,
I think so
you know,
too. I think the thing I'm kind of running into with it is like I think GTA Online's cool and all, but I'm more of, obviously we're more 5M players. We like the
yeah,
more casual role play aspect versus the just chaos go 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 atmosphere of GTA Online. I think it
exactly.
could work. It's just from my perspective, maybe I'm more biased against it naturally because I'm not a big fan of the chaos just jumping in the game. I think it could be cool for sure for the right type of people because I see the appeal for someone that plays GTA Online playing something like this. Being able
Yeah,
to do like these passive battle missions and stuff, go on and buy a clubhouse from one of the properties in the big map. And, they can run their little tagged crew or whatever like that and do heist or whatever like that in instances. Then they could do like free run stuff like drug runs and stuff run out of their clubhouses or two pre configured locations. It would be chaos, but I think it could be done. But I think it would have to be done very much like how Rockstar handled GTA 5 with GTA Online, where they delayed it by like, what was it, a year?
yeah, something like
And
that.
built the game after the story came out, which is, I think, would be very much a similar marketable idea for here.
Yeah,
Is I think you would have to release your story game once, develop the buzz, and then be like, hey, we're coming out with an online version where you can play with up to 100 people in a lobby.
yeah, because that's where you could really get into like the personal character
Oh,
customization, right? Like
absolutely.
you come in and you can change the look of your character, put different clothes on them, but in the storyline, you're really gated to just what the storyline has to offer, and people will like that. And I think people will like the online aspect of it just as much. And I think too, I mean, like, we both come from the 5M RP communities. I think having the ability to do that, like private servers. Now,
Absolutely.
whether that would be by the game company itself or somebody to come up with like a 5M style system to run on top of it, I think would be cool. And add the modding support and the map, changing the map, adding vehicle, stuff like that. Just modding the game out for a bunch of stuff would be awesome.
I think you release it as like whatever GameX is right now because we haven't decided on a name, but GameX Online. So you have the GameX,
Yeah.
which is our story based name, and then GameX Online. I think what we do is we embrace a different thing. Yes, it would be a play by service, but I think you kind of take cues from like Bethesda with Fallout 76, where you could be like, for $15 or $20 a month, you can basically have access to a private server for up to 25 or 30 of your friends. And
Yeah.
then I think what you do beyond that is you offer the option for an SDK modding capability out of the box. So like instead of being like, oh, you're going to basically have to hack the game to add mods
Yeah.
to it, it's like, look, if you pay for the subscription as the server owner, you can mod it however you
Yeah,
want. If you find
exactly.
mods, but we don't control the environment, we don't do anything like that. We'll give you the toolbox, the access, basically like the Open Ivy Code Walker thing where they can edit things in the world. And we leave it at that and let them have their day with it. Then, if you have communities that want to do RP servers, let them write scripts in Lua or whatever like that, that they can host things, maybe give them the tools to do it, but just kind of let them in, call it, GameX Sandbox or something like that. And they can do whatever they want with it. And then you create that replayability
Right.
where if they don't want to do the story anymore because they've played it, they can play it with their friends on and do whatever and set up missions, maybe add like a mission editor or something like that where they can create their own missions.
Right. Yeah, I think that would be cool. Now, I mean, since we're kind of getting
Yeah.
getting over an hour and a half here, what do you think about the name for it?
Ooh, this one I've struggled with. I've been thinking about it as we've been going. Is I kind of find a funny name and I think it would be a workhorse or a working title, but tell me what you think of this. Iron Horse Redemption.
I mean, I think that's it. That's it right there.
I kind of thought about it. I was looking at some names. I had ChatGPT generate me some random stuff, and most of them were that. And I was like, the whole time we've been doing this, I've been thinking, I was like, I want to make a play on Red Dead Redemption. So I like fed it
Yeah,
in. And I
Steel
was like,
Horse Redemption.
yeah, yeah,
It's good.
Iron Horse
Or,
Redemption.
yeah,
I think is a
Steel Horse
great,
or Iron Horse. Yeah, either way, that'd be great. I
yeah,
think I think that encapsulates it all, really. I mean, to wrap it up, it's just like a story-driven, story-based game in the root of it that's driven around biker gangs and kind of the transition period of we're just a biker club that likes to ride with each other, but branching off into that criminal aspect of what biker gangs for the big ones are right now is they do some of that gang activity and stuff like that. And that's kind of how people view them. But I think it gives it a unique play style. It's not just like you're hopping in right into a fully formed gang. You get to choose it how you want to do it. I think it's a great concept. You think we should sell it or shelve it?
I think we should sell it.
I think so too. I agree with you. I think it'd be an awesome game to see. I think it'd be really fun to play. And
Absolutely.
it's unique because I don't think I've seen a game like that. I mean, we see the old school Red Dead stuff and then the new school GTA stuff, and I don't think there's that one focus on one thing. And you said like AAA studio level, like a
Absolutely.
Rockstar Take Two type
I think
thing.
you'd have to be a Rockstar studio and the reason I say Rockstar is Rockstar's done pretty good at getting the like third person joystick driving mechanics down. They're not
Yeah,
horrible. I mean, GTA 5 there's some lacking there, but GTA 4 if you remember had really impressive driving mechanics.
yeah. And to top it off, they do a really great job with storytelling.
Oh
Like I
yeah,
said, with Red Dead, it
environments.
was like, yeah, environments. Like when you look at the environment in Red Dead 2, it's like there's dudes building houses that take the whole storyline of the game for them to make something or just progresses over time. And seeing something like that in this world would be awesome. If you roll into town the first time and you're seeing like some development happening, by the time the game's over, maybe there's more houses or something.
Yeah, and
You see the world grow.
I think that kind of plays into it too briefly is the idea of like the early days of the freeway system, the interstate system. And so like as
Yeah.
the game's developing in time, like you're seeing these roads be constructed and you're starting to see these towns starting to die and just the environment change, the whole Rust Belt idea. Like the
Yeah. Yeah.
Southwest Rust Belt feel where it's just like you're seeing what they call urban crawl or urban sprawl, and so these small towns are growing in the small cities, and the small cities are growing in the metropolises. And you're just seeing the change. And it's like, you know, obviously now MCs are still around, but I don't think they have quite the significance they used to have in culture.
No.
And it's like we're a dying breed in a sense. Is this old mentality's dying with the society change, technology's changing, cars are changing, and you could really incorporate all this. And that's what I said earlier in the thing with the politics of the game. And it doesn't have to be actual like government politics, but just cultural politics, how culture's changing. You might start out the game, people are like, oh, that's so cool, the motorcycle thing. And then, by the end of the story, a lot of people just hate the idea of a motorcycle club because
Yeah,
they've heard nothing
exactly.
but bad things. And, you go from, oh, that's a cool bike to, oh, man, get out of here. I don't want to see you around here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that would be super important, having that dynamically and like evolving world around you where, you just see the times changing, you see stuff getting updated, and that maybe even part of the game where an interstate would be, you start seeing that get developed over time. And then by the end, people are driving on that. I think
Yeah,
all of that living world stuff would be great.
I agree. So, based off of that, I think we figured out the name. We've decided to
Yep.
sell it. I think that's kind of the recap for the week. I mean, uh, quick breakdown of the game. So, as I said before, it's an open world story driven game. Basically, Red Dead Redemption with horses. You have more interesting gameplay systems, I would say, than Red
Steel
Dead.
horses. Steel
Steel
horses.
horses. Steel horses.
Yeah.
Uh, you have, your club hierarchy and politics in the story. You have your deep bike customization, I believe, is so important. The dynamic territory, so controlling turf, defending turf, expanding your influence, your brotherhood, the relationship with your club members, betrayals, loyalty, internal rivalries could shape the story. The law enforcement, even, which we touched lightly on, the heat and stuff like that, police could scale with your reputation from small town sheriffs to, big federal task force, kind of like what do they call it? I can't think of the term they use it in the legal term, the RICO Act, like being the RICO Act of federal employees or federal police coming in and trying to shut your gang down if you get too criminal. And the culture of it, the riding out, the rallies, the convoys, the MC rituals. I think a huge part of the narrative in the game is like even the small members, like Patchin, have the Patchin ceremonies played out for some of your named members, votes, things like that. Even funerals. If a character dies in the story, one of the named characters, not the cannon fodder, but you know, you want to develop an attachment to these characters, and by the end of the story, you're like, wow, like, your main guy, what if Charlie the mechanic dies somewhere in the story? And it's like a complete accident or something like that. Maybe they thought he was another gang. Someone in the club shoots him and kills him. And then you got to deal with the fact you're like, wait, I didn't think he would die there. And now you got to play out the funeral and things like that. And I'm not saying do things like, untastefully, but impact yourself as much as what would impact your character if you get drawn into the story is going to impact you playing the game. You're going to be like, man, that sucks. I like that guy. I worked really hard with him and he's gone. And I don't think they should just die randomly. I think it should be scripted from certain event pass or something. Maybe choices you make early on comes back to haunt you. And, they kind of did it in GTA in the past with like, the wedding shooting and stuff in GTA 4 with the wedding and stuff. They build it up to it and then bad things happen. I mean, that's a part of what draws you into these games and makes them really like impressive. But I think that's going to be it for this week's episode. Uh
Yeah, I got nothing else. I think it's great.
well, one thing we didn't do, what's one feature we may have not named that you want to see in the game?
One feature. Um, I mean, it's a very minimal feature, but I think that going with the time-based stuff is having like your character change their look over time, like hair growing out, stuff like
Yeah.
that. I know it's very minimal, but like just to add more realism
Age.
to it, age and yeah, facial hair, maybe weight, I don't know. Like
I
depending.
think I think you could have weight play a factor. Maybe,
Yeah.
a small thing is your character can eat and based off of the things you eat. Now, I'm not saying a
Yeah, yeah.
hunger system, but, if you're going to the shop every time. But that's it. Joe will be pitching the next episode. Joe, do you have an idea for next week's episode?
I have a couple and I haven't decided on which one that I want to pitch yet.
Well, what tease would you like to give?
Um
Or would you like to leave it to a vote?
We could leave it to a vote if anybody in the comments wants to say something or, I mean, it's two different ideas. I don't want to say they're simulator. One could be a simulator game for sure. The other one could be more of a fun, wacky game based off of real life YouTuber, actually. So,
So let us know down in the comments if you'd like to see another kind of simulator game or something kind of wacky and off the wall. But I think that's going to be it for the episode. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to leave a like if it's on YouTube. Comments are welcome on YouTube and Spotify. And you can feel free to check out the show next week on any of the streaming platforms other than Apple Music, because I still haven't got it to work right. But that's going to be it. You want
all
to
right.
take us out, Joe?
Yeah. We'll see y'all guys next week. And we're going to have something good and fun for you, I think. So, yeah, just down below, like we said, comment if you can, like the video, share it. Let us know what you want to see. If you have an idea and you want to toss it out there to us, we can discuss it. That'd be something interesting to do as well. And I think, yeah, that's going to be it. So we'll see you guys next week. See you later.
Bye bye.